is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's when he swung it easy at three-quarter golf swings, and he pretty much hit his number all the time. Dude, but when he hit something full, he hit it 20 yards over the greens at times. He's like, what are you doing? He's just smiley, happy, and a freakish athlete golf robot that's going to be right there winning majors for the next 10-plus years. It's amazing. Did you say he was smiling or smiley?
Only on SportsGrid.
Draisaitl could easily, at plus money, get the first goal, the second goal, the fourth goal. There's a few guys here. Maybe the prop betting market is not a bad way to look here.
Clippers over the Mavericks. If I would have told you that score before the game, knowing that Kawhi Leonard wasn't playing, I would have really figured it would have been the other way around. But the NBA is just crazy.
In-game live, all access, only on SportsGrid.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
A night the best prospects in football take the next step. A night the future of franchises around the National Football League is forever changed. A night the NFL landscape is reshaped. Hello and welcome to the 2024 SportsGrid NFL Draft Special, live right here all across the SportsGrid network. I am Ben Stevens. He is the mastermind of the pigskin. That is Joe Lisi. We have reached tonight in the Motor City, the opening night of the 2024 NFL Draft in Detroit. 32 picks, 32 franchises. See their future forever changed. As a wise man once told me, Joe, this is what it's all about.
Oh, the atmosphere is unbelievable, Ben. We know that Caleb Williams is going to be taken most likely 1 overall. What happens in terms of 2 and 3? Jaden Daniels and maybe even Drake May potentially to the Patriots. That's what will play out a little bit later tonight.
Caleb's coronation is expected. A quarterback conversation coming your way as well. But it's not just Joe Lisi and I live in studio. We've got 6 cast and crew for you all night long through the entirety of the opening round of the 2024 NFL Draft up until midnight Eastern time. Because over there, you see Mike Blewitt and our NFL insider, Adam Kaplan, our lead NFL analyst, Warren Sharp, as well. Blewitt, hello to you and the boys. We are just about half an hour away from the opening night of the NFL Draft beginning.
Ben and Joe, great to be here with you. I'll be holding it down in the lounge area with Warren Sharp and Adam Kaplan. Obviously, many picks to talk about, and we'll focus a lot on the teams and the team business, Cap, and your expectations in this round one. It feels like we're going to go heavy with offense.
Yeah, this could be historic. I'm expecting at least 20 offensive players, a lot of offensive linemen. I'm expecting at least, Mike, 8 offensive linemen. In fact, most will be tackles. Typically, you don't draft a guard in the first round unless he's like Quentin Nelson, who the Colts took, who's terrific. But, yeah, this is going to be a huge offensive first round.
So, Warren, we're going to be addressing a lot of stuff about the changes with teams. We've gotten through free agency. Now it's draft night, and these teams will be adding to their haul that they got in free agency.
You know, it's a great opportunity for these teams to turn the face of their franchise around. There's a lot of impactful players here. As we mentioned, a lot of offensive tackles. We also have a lot of quarterbacks going up at the top. Teams trying to move up to grab one of these players that really could change the franchise. We see a number of these teams that are up at the top, like the Arizona Cardinals, like the Washington Commanders, don't even have the first pick, but have the most draft capital, have some of the highest draft capital they've experienced in 25-plus years for some of these teams. really exciting opportunity for these franchises and their fans.
So, Ben, that's where we're holding it down over here. Back to you.
Yeah, here we are at the main desk, but the man that you see as well on the screen, marking the movement all night long. Following the odds, it's OK Dubs, Kevin Walsh. If there is a wager out there, Kevin Walsh knows the price for it. And, Kev, there are plenty of markets for the 2024 NFL Draft.
There certainly are, and I know the price for it about 5 minutes ago. This is here because it moves quickly. Right before we got going, within the last half hour, news around Drake May that now sees him at minus 2,000 at some books to be the third overall selection in this draft. What does that mean for picks 1 and 2? A lot of assumptions certainly already out there, but even Drake May going third doesn't add a total sense of clarity. Is he going to the Patriots? Is he going to the Giants? Is he going to the Minnesota Vikings? Again, the expectation is New England, but we won't know until we know, Ben. But the odds certainly expect quarterbacks 1, 2, and 3.
And certainly at number 1, minus 100,000 is the price as of this moment for Caleb Williams to be the first overall selection made by the Chicago Bears. And, Joe, that's where we start our quarterback conversation. It has been expected for quite some time. Really, since he won the 2022 Heisman Trophy, franchises were already projecting out for who would have that first overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. The Bears seem to be that lucky organization.
Oh, he stepped up last year. 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He has that Pat Mahomes type of play in the sense of extending plays, great pocket presence, and the ability to break, contain, and put pressure on opposing defenses on the perimeter. There's no doubt Caleb Williams is a first-round talent. How does he fit now with DJ Moore and potentially Keenan Allen is the main question, something that the Bears, Ben, didn't do with their former quarterback, Justin Fields.
It's probably not an if, but more likely when Caleb Williams is selected first overall, he'll be the 8th quarterback in the last 10 NFL drafts to be that first overall selection. A hefty odds-on favorite, Mike Blewitt, as are the prices to go second overall. That's Jaden Daniels at minus 600. And as Kevin just shared, Drake May at minus 2,000. The most quarterbacks we have ever seen in the modern era of the NFL draft, dating back to 1997 in the opening round, is 5. I think we get pretty close on this Thursday evening.
Yeah, Cap, clearly, like Ben said, we're going to be in the range of 5, maybe even 6 first-round quarterbacks. What I think is unique about this class relative to some of the other ones is all of these players have ample playing experience in college. We're not projecting somebody like Anthony Richardson this year,
right,
who had very little playing time. We have seen a lot of these quarterbacks throughout their college career, and 3 of the guys are over 23 years old.
Yeah, it's funny, Mike, you mentioned that, because talking to general managers over the years, boy, when they do studies, the quarterbacks who play 3 or 4 years comparatively to 1 or 2 years, the success rate goes way up the longer that you play. And you look at this group, very experienced, no doubt about it. The thing, though, is with quarterbacks, when they go to the NFL level, what's the supporting cast like? Because there's going to be a step up on the defenses that they face. Let's be honest here. You're facing spread offenses, and defenses that have trouble stopping it in college. Here, the defenses are sophisticated. They got to process better here. Caleb Williams, who's a phenomenal talent, he's going to see some things he's never seen before. So Bear fans who are not really patient, you're going to have to show some this season.
Warren, of those top 3, let's just take those for now, and Williams, Daniels, and May, which one would you be most concerned about stepping into those teams if it goes 1, 2, 3, Williams, Daniels, and May?
No doubt about it. Easy answer for me is May. I mean, if you're indeed going to the New England Patriots, the cupboard is relatively bare there. I mean, that wide receiver core was not good whatsoever last year. Remember frequently betting the under on Juju Smith-Schuster's longest catch. I mean, they just have no explosiveness in that passing game. The run game didn't have a lot of production. The offensive line was giving up too many sacks. I just don't see a lot of upside right now for the New England Patriots. So they're getting a hard reset, and they need a hard reset. And that offense is going to be slow to develop. And I think May is the candidate of those top 3 who himself needs to develop. So work in progress there in New England.
Yeah, and I would say, Ben, all the information that we're getting here is going to impact the long-term outlook that we have on this network of win totals, player projections, and everything else as we head deeper into the offseason.
Quarterback is the most significant position, and we expect QBs to go 1, 2, and 3 tonight in the 2024 NFL Draft. But what about that fourth quarterback off the board? And Kev, it's the QB that I consider the most pivotal piece in this 2024 NFL Draft. Out of Michigan, the reigning national champs, that would be J.J. McCarthy. What are the odds telling you about where McCarthy is expected to go in tonight's opening round?
Well, they're trying to tell us that McCarthy could go inside this top 5, but not with a ton of certainty. With the expectation now that May will go 3rd, it would require a trade for J.J. McCarthy to be selected 4th or 5th. Arizona Cardinals, of course, have Kyler Murray, and the L.A. Chargers with Justin Herbert. We know the Chargers are ready and willing to trade back, which is, again, what draft bettors who took McCarthy to be a top 5 pick or under that draft position of 5.5 would be banking on. Who might call? Odds think the Minnesota Vikings. After, again, the move on Drake May, the Vikings have come crashing down as a strong favorite to be the team to select McCarthy, minus 170. Other books hanging a plus 105, so perhaps still time to run to the window if you believe this is the decision the Minnesota Vikings wait. The wrinkle of it all would be the New York Giants, who have had quarterback ties. They're stronger so far to Drake May, but there have been J.J. rumors, Ben. They drafted 6th overall.
And just to show you how much the draft odds, even within the final half an hour before the 2024 NFL Draft, can change, J.J. McCarthy now plus 140 to be a top 5 selection. Earlier on draft day, it was a minus 280 number. We are still just about 20 minutes away from the start of the 2024 NFL Draft, and we have so much more to tell you live right here on SportsGrid.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been there a couple of years, and then go get the high-profile recruit and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Quotes coming out about Embiid. Oh, he's a warrior. You'll never get him off the court. You're just telling me he's an injury. He's one slip and fall away from not seeing him anymore in this series.
I would have sat him because there was only 1 day between the 2 games. It's 2 days between games 2 and games 3, and it's 2 days between games 3 and game 4.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage Late
This sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We are about 20 minutes away from the start of the 2024 NFL Draft tonight in the Motor City. It's the first round, the opening night. And you're watching live right here across the SportsGrid network for our 2024 draft special all night long. Ben Stevens and Joe Lisi, but a huge cast and crew live right here in studio all night long. Mike Blewitt, Adam Kaplan, Warren Sharp, and of course, Kevin Walsh as well. And Blewitt, we heard earlier, not only is it a quarterback conversation and discussion with the most significant position on a football field, but the guys in charge of keeping those QBs upright. The over-under prop for offensive linemen taken on this opening Thursday night in the 2024 NFL Draft's first round is 9.5, and the over has the hefty juice. Blewitt, we expect it to be a big night for the big fellas up front.
Yeah, so 9.5 is certainly a number that's even, we've even seen it juiced up to this level more, and beyond that, there's some alt numbers, as many as 10 or 11 offensive linemen could be taken. It's not always the sexiest pick, but I think the NFL teams have been communicating to us through their draft strategies for years that they don't care if it's sexy or not. They need guys to protect these franchise quarterbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. Quarterback is only as good as some of his protection. Quarterbacks can help control protection. We just are going to be talking about it momentarily when we talk about Caleb Williams and Justin Fields and some of Justin Fields' issues with holding on to the football too long, which invites pressure. But absolutely, I mean, if you want to get a good run game going and help the pass game, which is the most important thing towards wins and losses, you need an offensive line that's going to be healthy, that's going to be durable, and is going to excel. And there's a lot of great studs in this draft class.
All right, Cap, we have guys like Jim Harbaugh, who's a brand new coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, who prides himself on that type of play. There's a chance that even though it's been projected he'll take a wide receiver for months, that he may scoop up an offensive lineman early, or they could move, right?
Now, Mike, it won't be a left tackle. Rashawn Slater is their left tackle. He was the second-team All-Pro as a rookie. Now, you could look at Trey Pipkins. When I do mock drafts or I try to decide where teams are going to go, in addition to the intel that I have, I look at every NFL contract. They can get a Pipkins contract after the season and don't owe him anything. And again, they inherited this player. You just talked about Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz, the new general manager, so they're inheriting this roster. So, yeah, they could go for a right tackle. But typically, you don't draft a right tackle that early. When the Eagles drafted Lane Johnson very early, he was drafted to replace left tackle Jason Peters. Remember that. So taking a right tackle at number 5 is a little bit early.
Yeah, so Big Ten Ben, your guy Jim Harbaugh, now in a new place. Does he make moves? Does he let Joe Ortiz make the moves? That's the thing early on in this draft that I'm going to be focused on, is where the Chargers are going to be moving.
What are the Bolts going to do? Will it be an offensive lineman with that first pick that they make at 5th overall, or maybe a wide receiver? But, Blue, we go right back to you and our SportsGrid NFL insider in Adam Kaplan. There's always some news that breaks around the National Football League on the night of the draft as those NFL circles back in full swing. And we just got some for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Birds extending wide receiver A.J. Brown, a 3-year, $96 million contract extension with $84 million guaranteed. So, Mike Blewitt, we have Adam Kaplan live right here in studio. The Philadelphia Eagles extend A.J. Brown after extending Devontae Smith earlier this offseason, a focus offensively.
Yeah, this is Ben. This is interesting, Mike. This is their 6th extension, okay, that they've done this offseason. And A.J. Brown had a massive cap number for 25 at $24 million, just about over $24 million and $15 million in cash, but the cash was not guaranteed. He and his agent, Torrey Daney, had gone to the Eagles in the last couple of months, I'm told, and said, listen, we know what our contract looks like. We want it extended. They've done that. They've taken care of this. He's got the guaranteed money that he's looking for, and what they'll do is they're going to lower next year's cap number. And then he had a dummy year in 26 where he had over $40 million cap number. That's a quarterback number. You're not going to go through that. So the thing is, and Warren knows this from studying the Eagles, their offensive talent is ridiculous. I mean, it starts with the Eagles on defense this offseason. They need cornerbacks, but look at their offense. You mentioned Devontae Smith, extended. A.J. Brown, extended. Landon Dickerson, extended. They've done so much work here now. It's about the defense.
And they brought in Saquon, but also added Bryce Huff on the defensive side of the ball. Do you think tonight for the Eagles, it's a focus strictly on defense?
It could be, but Howie always tends to go a year early, and maybe he's going to I'm hearing rumors he could want to trade up for an offensive lineman. It's either that or a cornerback. Those are the two odds-on favorites for what the Eagles would do, but I think it's a testament to Howie and the way that he's attacking this offseason. many teams are having some disgruntled wide receivers that are looking to hold out, demanding trades. And here he's locked up 2 studs, one of which he drafted long-term, Devonta Smith, now A.J. Brown. Great news if you're an Eagles fan.
Yeah, Ben, obviously the Eagles continue to support Jalen Hurts in the best way possible. Get him more weapons.
And listen, we're focused on the future here on the night of the 2024 NFL Draft. Joe, for some, that's a long-term approach. For the Eagles, it's a focus on getting back on top in 2024. The Birds right now, 7-1, 4th best price to win the NFC Championship. After squandering down the stretch a year ago in 2023, what can we expect out of Philly in 2024?
I think a bounce-back season, right? Vic Fangio with the defense. Now you bring in Kellen Moore with the offense. And now you make A.J. Brown happy. We sat here in Vegas 2 years ago. A.J. Brown was trading from the Titans to the Eagles. Nobody saw that coming. And we saw him step up. I mean, multiple 100-yard games in the early part of the season. That's why the Eagles started out 10-1 and then fell off a cliff. You want to have your 2 best players in Devonta Smith and now A.J. Brown locked up long-term. Look what happened with Stephon Diggs in Buffalo. That's why now he's playing for the Houston Texans.
And Kev, the Eagles selecting 22nd overall in this first round of the 2024 NFL Draft. What do you think the extension of A.J. Brown does to what Philly does tonight in the NFL Draft?
Look, well, first and most importantly, go Birds. Second of all here, this is a team that should be thinking win now. I don't know how else you describe their move to bring in Saquon Barkley. Howie Roseman changing the way he works. I understand that's not going to happen overnight, but if this offseason's been any indication, perhaps it's time to draft a cornerback in the first round. A lot of rumors that the Eagles want to trade up. As Adam Kaplan said, there's potentially double-digit offensive linemen going in this first round. Trading up for one doesn't make as much sense. Trading up for a cornerback, Ben, makes a lot more.
The Eagles favored to select an offensive lineman at -110 entering the 2024 NFL Draft, but we can tell you we're getting closer because the odds markets are now off the board. We're about 10 minutes away from the start of the 2024 NFL Draft, and we keep it rolling here on SportsGrid.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been there a couple of years and then go get the high-profile recruit and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Quotes coming out about Embiid. Oh, he's a warrior. You'll never get him off the court. You're just telling me he's an injury. He's one slip and fall away from what's not seeing him anymore in this series.
I would have sat him because there was only 1 day between the 2 games. It's 2 days between games 2 and games 3, and it's 2 days between games 3 and game 4.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
this
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We are live for the entirety of the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft on our SportsGrid Draft Special all night long. It's the opening night of the draft out in the Motor City. And, Joe, it's not just following the odds and what the market movement tells us about who goes where and which NFL teams select which prospect, but also which teams trade with who. How much movement do you expect that we see tonight between teams trading up or moving back on the board?
I expect a lot of movement, and we saw it last year, Ben, right? Who saw coming out of left field Houston going back-to-back with C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson, respectively? They made the move with Arizona. I think potentially Minnesota could be on the move for a quarterback. They're sitting at number 11 right now. Or Denver and Sean Payton's very interesting, right? They have Zach Wilson, Jarrett Stidham on the roster, but Sean Payton didn't sign up for a major rebuild. Do they potentially move up inside the top 10 to get their quarterback of the future? I think that's something we have to keep an eye out on.
And Kev, my favorite thing about the NFL draft odds for a night like this in the opening round is not just the numbers available for a prospect or where that player goes, but even for how many trades that we see. What did the odds say entering today on draft day about which teams might be on the move?
They said that we are going to see some deals, and that's what we're rooting on. 6.5, a legitimate market over on DraftKings for the number of first-round trades. It was plus 120 yesterday. It is minus 160 now. I saw some information from Peter Schrager the other day saying he could see 10 or more first-round trades. You don't need 10. You need 7. And I think that becomes pretty enticing. And some news as you kind of sit here and watch me mock draft as we're doing this. Rich Cimini, who covers the New York Jets, saying that they would love to get back, well, not back, but further into this top 10 and take a falling wide receiver, Neighbors or Rome Odunze. At last look, Ben, the Jets' position of the first player drafted being a wide receiver is plus 210.
And as we go over to you, Mike Blewitt, for which teams are most likely to move up the board, either to trade their spot or teams maybe open at calls to move back, we send it over to your set for which NFL teams could be on the move tonight in the Motor City.
Yeah, so, Warren, we know obviously these first three teams, the Pats, the Commanders, and the Bears are all going QB, but we have other teams like the Giants, the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Vikings that need to address the QB position in some way as well. So who will it be for? That remains to be seen, but clearly those teams might have to position themselves to get a quarterback of the future.
Yeah, and I really hope it's the New York Giants. We're going to talk about this when the Giants go on the clock, but Brian Daboll, he and Mike Kafka deserve to have a quarterback that they want in there who is actually going to be productive and efficient, as opposed to dealing with Daniel Jones as they've done for the first couple of seasons. I don't know, though, if they're going to have enough firepower to get where they need to get in order to get a Drake May, nor do I know that the New England Patriots will be willing to part with that pick to turn their franchise around and get them started in the right direction. And as a result, I think the most likely team is probably the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, Cap, anything further on that?
Yeah, Mike, when you look at the Vikings situation, is that they've made this decision that they're going to get a quarterback in this draft. Remember, they made the trade. They got the extra first-round pick. It's all about the quarterback. It's got to be about the quarterback, and they don't have a second or third-round pick. That's the problem. They've kind of locked themselves in that they have to get that quarterback. If not, they don't have much of a choice. It's the one position they need. Cornerback is second, which we'll talk about as the draft progresses.
Ben, maybe Sam Darnold renaissance in 2024? We shall see. Back to you.
Blue, based on the odds, I don't believe so. And it's been a fascinating follow, Joe, because you can use the odds in their different categories to paint at least a small picture of what the draft might look like to start off this opening night. Because the Minnesota Vikings were always favored to take J.J. McCarthy, and now it's a minus 170 number at close. But J.J. McCarthy was also favored to be a top 5 pick and a top 10 pick, as strong of odds as minus 1,800 to be picked in the first 10 selections of this 2024 NFL draft. And with Minnesota currently slotted in at number 11 overall, that would mean the Vikings would have to trade their way up the board.
Yeah, and J.J. McCarthy's a winner. You can knock him all you want. He stepped up in the semifinal playoff win over Alabama, over 200 yards, a 2-minute drill in terms of giving that team the victory in a national championship. So you can't knock J.J. McCarthy. He's won on the football field. And more importantly right now, if you're Minnesota, you have to have a quarterback for the future, a face of that franchise. They're not going to do it with Sam Darnold.
I think J.J. McCarthy is the most pivotal piece in this draft for the team that is most interested in him moving up the board and what it would mean from everybody behind. A 27-1 record as a starting quarterback at Michigan with a minimum of 25 starts in the last 50 years of college football. It's the best record by a quarterback in that span. We continue our NFL draft coverage on this opening night. Up next.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been there a couple of years, and then go get the high-profile recruit and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Quotes coming out about Embiid. Oh, he's a warrior. You'll never get him off the court. You're just telling me he's an injury. He's one slip and fall away from not seeing him anymore in this series.
I would have sat him because there was only 1 day between the two games. It's 2 days between games 2 and games 3, and it's 2 days between games 3 and game 4.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The countdown to the Chicago Bears officially being on the clock is under 10 minutes away. It's the opening night in the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft, and we welcome you once again to our 2024 Draft Special live right here on SportsGrid. What a cast and crew we have for you all night long throughout all 32 picks in this 2024 NFL Draft's first round. It's Ben Stevens, it's Joe Lisi, and live in our coverage, we have Mike Blewitt, our NFL insider Adam Kaplan, our lead NFL analyst in Warren Sharp, and the man marking all of the odds movement tonight, OK Dubs, Kevin Walsh. So, Joe, we're just under 10 minutes away for what we expect to be Caleb's coronation as that first overall selection made by the Chicago Bears. Minus 100,000 to be that first overall pick. It would bring up the idea he's a generational talent, touted to go to Chicago and bring this franchise back to the postseason. What can Chicago expect out of Caleb Williams in his rookie season?
Production, especially as it relates to the passing attack. They were very inconsistent last year with Justin Fields. He had good games, he had bad games, but Caleb Williams is a generational talent in the assessment of he extends plays, great pocket presence, above average arm, and can make all the throws. And the escapability, Ben, we saw him take over games with his legs. That's something him and Jaden Daniels have above every other quarterback in terms of this draft class. The expectations are there now. DJ Moore is there, Keenan Allen, and an 8.5 win total. He has to hit the ground running. That is the major concern with Matt Eberflus at the helm.
The 2022 Heisman Trophy winner expected to be that number one overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. But Kev, he's just one quarterback as a part of this conversation on the opening night of the NFL draft out in Detroit. The battle for who goes behind Caleb Williams at second overall and at number 3 has been interesting throughout this 2-month draft process as we are just a few minutes away from the draft officially beginning. What are the odds expecting?
Expecting Jaden Daniels to go 2. If you look at this just at the close, it seems as if it was never in doubt. You missed a whirlwind. Topgolf, agents tweeting. A lot of questions about Jaden Daniels and his fit desire to be a Washington Commander. Less than a week ago, we saw this market move against Daniels and reposition Drake May as a favorite to go 2. No longer better than minus 6,000, the closing number on Daniels at 2. Washington hasn't picked up the phone in quite some time. Behind that, Ben, is the New England Patriots, with Drake May expected to be the pick. Certainly expected to go 3rd at minus 2,000, the closing number. But will it be New England? There are still reports that they will take phone calls once officially on the clock, with the Vikings and Giants expected to be hot, potentially on Drake May.
The most quarterbacks we have ever seen in the modern draft era, dating back to 1997, in the opening round is 5. And Mike Blewitt, the over-under for quarterbacks taken in this opening round of the 2024 NFL draft was 4.5. But the over was heavily juiced at minus 650.
Yeah, we obviously see this kind of movement a lot, Cap, where teams are trading information, trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do. And I think given the level of experience that we talked about earlier with all of these teams, you could have had a situation where obviously you got in on multiple players at plus odds here, but I'm really curious to see what your thoughts are. There's been so many links between the Raiders and Michael Penix, between the Broncos and Bo Nix. Some of these comps are often convenient, and I don't know how based they are in actual facts that the teams would exercise.
All right, so Mike, with Denver and Bo Nix, see, Bo Nix has a connection to the Broncos with some of the coaches. So that's where that connection might go. But again, that early, no way. His value is going to be late first, early second. When you look at Michael Penix, and I actually, in my just talking to people around the league, I'd be stunned if he doesn't go at least late first. Yes, it's true, guys. He has an injury history. I get that. But it's been 2 years that he's healthy. The ACL is fine from what I understand. I know it's been surgically repaired twice. He had the dislocated shoulder. That's fine. He's the best downfield passer by percentage. Excellent processor. The one knock on him, and it's true, today, Mike, the NFL quarterback, you want him to be able to play off schedule. When you and I were growing up, it was about the drop-back quarterback. It's no longer about that. You got to be able to move like Caleb Williams, and that's why Caleb Williams is going number 1.
And a shout out to the lefty and Michael Penix, Warren. So one other thing I would ask you is that obviously we're focused on night 1 and whether or not Penix and Nix will also go in round 1 in addition to the 4 other guys we've mentioned. Is there any other quarterbacks that you are a fan of as potential developmental guys that will go tomorrow and Saturday, or Spencer Rattler or anybody else like that you feel like might have more upside than some of the guys we're talking about in the first round?
Frankly, no. But I'd love to see it. I love a story, and the teams love it too, because when they draft those guys, just like we saw with Brock Purdy or some of those guys that end up in the 3rd, 4th round who end up becoming somebody, you're hitting the cap for very little. That's a team's dream if something like that is able to occur, but it's very unlikely to occur. I mean, we remember those things. We remember the Tom Brady. We remember the Brock Purdy. We remember the Russell Wilson, but there's years in between those things happening. Most of the time, if you're going to be an impact quarterback, you're going to be taken in the first round.
Yeah, Ben, we see track this. Obviously, Kevin and I have talked about this a lot over the years, track the quarterbacks and their profiles. It is typical that each week 1, 23 of the starting quarterbacks are first-round draft picks. So that's why we focus on it so much. That is the majority of players that are starting in the NFL.
In Blue, as we said, 5 quarterbacks have gone in the opening round 3 times in the modern draft era since 1997, 1999, 2018, and as recently as 2021. In both 99 and 2021, we saw quarterbacks, Joe, go 1, 2, and 3 in that exact order. For it to be Caleb Williams first overall, Jaden Daniels second overall, and Drake May third overall was the expected outcome at minus 290, with those odds only growing stronger over the past few days. Do you think there could be any surprises that would make that minus 290 price not come through?
I do. I think at number 3, New England potentially at 15-1 can draft J.J. McCarthy. Again, I do have concerns, and I've said it all off season about Drake May. I know he put up numbers, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He's 6'3", 218, has an above-average arm, but I do have concerns. Back-to-back years at the end of the regular season against better competition, teams like Clemson, he lost the ACC championship 39-10, didn't step up last year, lost against Clemson, 44% completion percentage, lost to arch rival NC State, 57% completion percentage. Those are legitimate concerns on the next level. And we're talking about a quarterback in Bo Nix, 45 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and oh, by the way, completed 78% of his passes. I'd much rather take a shot on Bo Nix than I would Drake May.
Blue, quickly back to you. As the Chicago Bears are about to be back on the clock, J.J. McCarthy, a fascinating piece for this 2024 NFL Draft. If you look at the game tape during his time in the maze in blue, the stats leave a little bit to be desired, but the projection for McCarthy as a top 5, top 10 pick is of instant success as a quarterback in the National Football League.
Yeah, Captain, one thing I would ask you about this is I feel like there are personalities, profiles of certain players that NFL GMs and teams fall in love with, and J.J. McCarthy has a lot of those traits. Big-time winner, big-time school. It's easy to convince yourself that he may be more than he is, but he didn't throw a pass against Penn State this year in the second half. There are times when he's been hidden, so I'm curious what your thoughts are there.
No, Mike, you nailed it. The number one knock on McCarthy is not winning. He's won a lot of games. It's not being asked to win games. He's not really been asked to win with his arm. That is, quite frankly, the problem. I had at least 3 teams tell me they had a second-round grade on this guy. I had one team tell me they had a third-round grade. Why? Doesn't have a great arm, doesn't do anything special. But I do believe he's a great fit for West Coast offense. Look at Brock Purdy, the last pick overall 2 years ago, and look how good he is in a West Coast scheme.
And that national championship's pretty special, too.
It certainly is. The first for Michigan since 1997. We are moments, and I mean mere moments away from the Chicago Bears being officially on the clock to begin the 2024 NFL Draft. And we'll tell you when, right back here on SportsGrid.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been here a couple of years and then go get the high-profile recruit and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Quotes coming out about Embiid. Oh, he's a warrior. You'll never get him off the court. You're just telling me he's an injury. He's one slip and fall away from what's not seeing him anymore in this series.
I would have sat him because there was only 1 day between the 2 games. It's 2 days between games 2 and games 3, and it's 2 days between games 3 and game 4.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The 2024 NFL Draft now officially underway. The Chicago Bears are on the clock with the first overall pick. We welcome you back to our 2024 Draft Special, live right here across the SportsGrid network. So, Joe Lisi, although the pick is not in, the odds do tell the story at minus 100,000 for Caleb Williams to be that first overall selection made by the Bears. We are mere moments away from Chicago making a decision that could forever change the course of their franchise.
It can, and Lincoln Riley quarterbacks have done pretty well in terms of their first couple of years in the league. Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, hit the ground running, and they put up numbers, and that's what Caleb Williams is expected to do. Again, there's going to be growing pains in terms of this offense. That is a concern right now in terms of Matt Eberflus and how they utilized Justin Fields last year. We know his skill set is similar to Caleb Williams, never really put him in a great position to win ball games, and he was sacked a lot. Caleb Williams is expected to win 8.5 win total. Again, they do have playmakers around him now, something that they didn't have the past couple of seasons.
Kev, the 2022 Heisman Trophy winner has always been the favorite to be the number one overall selection. At the end of the 2023 NFL campaign, it was minus 350. But on the night of the 2024 NFL Draft, minus 100,000. How did the odds journey get us here?
Well, this is a situation where I believe the reason the Caleb number starts as short as it does is you have a season to go through. What if injury were to arise? But by the time we got to the conclusion of the college football season and we knew the Bears were going to pick, there was a wrinkle. The Bears having Justin Fields on their roster, who they drafted in the first round just a few years ago. And Fields did have a really interesting 2 to 3 week window where he threw the most touchdowns in football, enough to maybe suggest there was some promise around Fields, legitimate debates. Draft Justin or draft Caleb. That ended up seeming silly in hindsight. Fields hardly had a trade market, and the Bears and their status to trade out never materialized, and the Caleb odds only grew stronger as this thing grew on. And now the expectations, whenever this pick is officially in, you got to love them wasting all this time when they know who their quarterback is going to be. Yeah. But the expectations, Ben, will be lofty for not just Caleb Williams, but everybody in Chicago and head coach Matt Eberflus.
Listen, you have to build up the drama in Detroit for the 2024 NFL Draft. But, Blue, as Kev alluded to, it wasn't always the smoothest of sailing to arrive at this destination that the Bears would stay at number one overall and utilize the pick to draft Caleb Williams. It's been an interesting draft process to see how the Bears moved on from Justin Fields and arrived here to make Caleb Williams the face of the franchise in the Windy City.
Yeah, Warren, I would say that not only is that part unique, obviously you're reading every story that you can about Caleb Williams and how he's interacting with everybody within the NFL and all the interviews, but this is also a team that had the pick last year, traded to the Panthers. They get back to the opportunity to draft first overall, and they are short on draft capital, but they've done a really good job acquiring players like Keenan Allen, Gerald Everett to give them another tight end target, DeAndre Swift they bring in. So putting all this together, despite the fact that they don't have a lot of draft picks, Caleb getting there, it's been a long road, but he might have some weapons to work with here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be very different for the Chicago Bears because Justin Fields invited that pressure far too much last season, averaged a league high 3.1 seconds before passing the football every drop back. He only got rid of the ball on 32% of his passes within 2.5 seconds. That was the league low percentage of getting rid of the football. So he was holding the ball far too much. I think Caleb Williams, you get him on schedule. You have him be a little bit more decisive. Yeah, sure, make some of those flashy Patrick Mahomes-like plays, but try to stay within rhythm of the offense a little bit better than Justin Fields was doing, and I think that he's going to be able to do that. And then you couple these two receivers when we're talking about DJ Moore, who absolutely dominates against man coverage. And you get Keenan Allen, who dominates against zone, where DJ Moore was not as good against zone. These guys complement each other so well. They're going to be always open, in my opinion. Somebody's going to be there for Caleb Williams. I'm excited to see what this Bears offense looks like in 2024.
Cat, back to Ben's point, there's always a story to be told, even if the guy's a lock to be number one. Trevor Lawrence had things said about him. Caleb Williams has stuff said about him. It's a tough, we're actually, before we get Cap's thoughts, I want to go back to Ben, as we may have an announcement.
Yeah, Blewitt, we'll have plenty of time to look at the future for the Chicago Bears, but what was expected is now official. With the number 1 overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the pick is in. The Chicago Bears have selected Caleb Williams, the 2022 Heisman Trophy winner out of USC, who, Joe, in that 2022 college football season threw for more than 4,500 yards, more than 40 touchdowns, added double digits on the ground, utilizing the athleticism as well. A minus 100,000 price for Caleb to be that first overall pick. It's expected. It's now confirmed. What should expectation be for Caleb Williams and the Bears in 2024?
Open it up, baby. Caleb Williams is a dynamic talent. Saw it a couple of years ago in Norman in Oklahoma when he came in terms of the Red River rivalry and just stepped in and led that comeback. Dynamic plays, the ability to break, contain, and hit big plays down the field. That's what you want to see in terms of the trajectory on the next level. He's a touchdown waiting to happen, and that's exactly what the Chicago Bears need when you challenge teams like Detroit and, more importantly, Green Bay with Jordan Love.
So, Blewitt, right back to you. The Chicago Bears now a minus 105 price to see the NFL playoffs. The win total for Chicago is 8.5. There's no rookie growing pains or time to really get his feet wet in the National Football League for Caleb Williams, at least according to the odds markets.
Yeah, Cap, Matt Eberflus certainly hopes that there's not a lot of time for him to get his legs under him. Elite arm talent. He was not afraid of competition. So thoughts on Caleb and how much he can project the Bears into the playoffs?
Yeah, look, he's an interesting player because he plays a lot off script. Talking to a quarterback coach last week, he said, look, love the talent level, really good arm, but at some point he's going to have to play within structure. And by the way, he's playing in a West Coast offense. That is a timing-based offense. Shane Waldron, the OC of the Bears, new guy out there, he did a phenomenal job with Geno Smith. Look at the job that he did with Geno Smith, who came out of nowhere after 10 years, became a competent NFL starting quarterback.
Ben, we've had a lot to talk about regarding Caleb Williams. We're going to move on to another topic when we get back to you.
Certainly so. The Washington Commanders now on the clock with the second overall pick of the 2024 NFL Draft. We'll tell you what Washington might do at number 2 following the break here on SportsGrid.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been there a couple of years and then go get the high-profile recruit and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Quotes coming out about Embiid. Oh, he's a warrior. You'll never get him off the court. You're just telling me he's an injury. He's one slip and fall away from not seeing him anymore in this series.
I would have sat him because there was only 1 day between the two games. It's 2 days between games 2 and games 3, and it's 2 days between games 3 and game 4.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to the 2024 Draft Special, live right here for the entirety of the opening round on this first night of the 2024 NFL Draft on the Sports Grid Network. The first pick has been made, as was expected. It's the quarterback from Southern Cal, Caleb Williams, who goes first overall, which now means Chicago's no longer on the clock, but it's the Washington Commanders with that second overall pick. We expect it to be the 2023 Heisman Trophy winner, but how exactly do we arrive at this conversation? Blewitt, we go right over to you. What is Washington's mindset entering the 2024 NFL Draft?
Yeah, so, Adam, we have one of the teams that began an overhaul with the sale of the team to Josh Harris. He brings in Dan Quinn as his new head coach, and now Cliff Kingsbury surprisingly ended up as their offensive coordinator. So why is Jordan Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury a potential marriage here?
Yeah, if you look at it, Mike, and Cliff Kingsbury, with the type of quarterback that he wants. He recruited Kyler Murray. He wound up then coaching him. He coached Patrick Mahomes. There's a commonality here. He wants a mobile quarterback. I'm also told that when people have coached with him, he wants a guy to run the ball in the red zone. That's got to happen. Jaden Daniels is it, not Drake May. That's the difference. Daniels more mobile. But by the way, Daniels is really smart. He's coachable. And I'm told that he definitely could put on some weight on his frame. I know people criticize him for his body frame. I'm told it's not a problem. Washington settled on him a week ago or so.
Okay.
They've known it.
We're going to head back to Ben. I think we made it official here.
The Commanders have known it, and now everybody else does around the National Football League as well. The pick is officially in. With the second overall selection of the 2024 NFL Draft, the Washington Commanders have drafted Jaden Daniels out of LSU, the 2023 Heisman Trophy winner. Kev, we go right to you because although Jaden Daniels closed as a minus 6,000 favorite to be the second overall pick of this draft, he wasn't always the favorite to be the second overall selection. What did the odds say in the weeks leading up to the NFL Draft?
You are absolutely spot on. When we first had eyes on these markets, the idea is it would be Drake May because Drake May was always expected to be a round one quarterback. Jaden Daniels got to this point through his Heisman season last year at LSU. As tempting as it is for me to ramble on into why I think that is dangerous for Washington, I'll leave that for others to discuss. But this is a market that saw Jaden start to pull away. And then all of a sudden it came back. Daniels in the news, not positively with his thoughts on what Washington was doing throughout this process. Agent tweets, Top Golf apparently not his deal. Drake May loved it. Washington didn't care, despite sending them all to golf. But we saw minus 110 either direction for May and Daniels within the last 10 days. Daniels, though, once he took that spot back, continued to march away. Minus 115 to minus 175 to minus 340. And once we saw that minus 1,000 number, it was all but done that Washington was going to take Jaden Daniels, Ben, out of LSU.
So, Kev, you won't ramble on about the 2023 Heisman Trophy winner, but I know a guy that will, and he sits to my left, and his name is Joe Lisi. More than 3,800 passing yards in this past season down in Baton Rouge, 40 passing touchdowns, more than 1,000 yards on the ground. Joe, he's one of 4 quarterbacks at the FBS level in the history of college football to throw for more than 3,000 yards and rush for more than 1,000 in a single regular season. Joining Johnny Manziel, Lamar Jackson, who did it twice, and Jalen Hurts, some pretty recognizable names at the quarterback position.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels did it in 2 years in terms of LSU, but let's not forget his career started in Tempe and Arizona State with Edwards, in terms of that coach. Let's not forget, Ben, 3 years ago, he outdueled Justin Herbert, 308 yards, knocked Oregon out of the college football playoff. You look at the totals in terms of touchdowns to interceptions, 57 touchdowns, only 7 INTs, stepped up in big games, the escapability, the poise in the pocket, Ben. That is the biggest thing. His ability to put the touch on the deep ball outside the hashes to Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors. They had dynamic numbers. Jaden Daniels is a pure talent. Him and Caleb Williams, in my opinion, 2 best quarterbacks in this draft class.
Jaden Daniels had a passer rating of 208.0 during the 2023 college football campaign. That is the best we have ever seen in the history of college football at the FBS level. It's a new era in Washington, a new head coach in Dan Quinn, a new offensive coordinator to guide Jaden Daniels in Cliff Kingsbury, and of course a completely new ownership group outside the nation's capital as well. Jaden Daniels goes number 2 overall. The New England Patriots on the clock with the 3rd overall pick of the 2024 NFL Draft. What might they do at number 3 in a new era up in Foxborough as well? We'll tell you on the other side of the break, live right here on SportsGrid.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been there a couple of years, and then go get the high-profile recruit and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Quotes coming out about Embiid. Oh, he's a warrior. You'll never get him off the court. You're just telling me he's an injury. He's one slip and fall away from not seeing him anymore in this series.
I would have sat him because there was only 1 day between the 2 games. It's 2 days between games 2 and games 3, and it's 2 days between games 3 and game 4.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the 2024 Draft Special across the Sports Grid Network. We are flying through the quarterbacks at the top of the 2024 NFL Draft. Right before we hit the commercial break, Washington makes the selection at 2nd overall, drafting the 2023 Heisman Trophy winner out of LSU, Jaden Daniels. And while we were in the break, now made official what the New England Patriots have done with the 3rd overall selection. The pick is officially in. It's the quarterback out of North Carolina, Drake May, a minus 2,000 favorite just 30 minutes prior to the NFL Draft beginning on this Thursday evening in Detroit to be the 3rd overall selection. And in the new era up in Foxborough, under Gerard Mayo, he has himself a new quarterback in Drake May. Blewitt, we expected quarterbacks to go 1, 2, and 3 off the board. It was a minus 290 price for this to be the exact order, and it ends with Drake May, the new signal caller, up in Foxborough.
So that's where the chalk lies, and we get all 3 picks that we anticipated going to the broadcast. New England will focus there for a moment, Warren. They have 11 picks in this draft. You said you had concerns earlier. You said earlier in the broadcast you had concerns about the cupboard being pretty empty for Drake May, but new regime here. They're building around him, obviously.
Yeah, they need to, but let's look at that cupboard being bare. This team ranked 25th in EPA per rush attempt, 25th in yards per carry, 30th in explosive run rate last year. So they were terrible when they tried to run the football. And then their pass block win rate, in ESPN metric, they ranked dead last in pass block win rate, which is a factor of the offensive line and how well they secure those blocks when the quarterback is dropping back to pass. Poor rushing game, bad offensive line play. This team is scheduled to win 4.5 games this year, and I've got them projected to play the NFL's second toughest strength of schedule for this upcoming season. So you couple all those things together, it's easy to see why, even if Drake May was a pure refined product, he was going to potentially struggle. But now you take on the consideration that May isn't a refined product, and he's going to have some growing pains as well. This is a time to practice a lot of patience if you're a New England Patriots fan. It may get it right, but it's not going to be quick.
Totally new regime, like I said, Cap. Elliott Wolf, the new GM, gets his QB, as is Gerard Mayo, who assumes the head coaching position. Alex Van Pelt, the new offensive coordinator. So lots of changes being made in New England. Jacoby Brissett there to perhaps shepherd Drake May into the starting position?
Yeah, listen, when you look at the situation, there's got to be patience here. Of the first-round projected quarterbacks, May has got the longest road. He does have a nice ceiling. He's very talented, good size, good athlete, not very accurate, misses throws, moves with Mike when he shouldn't move, and that's what concerns you from an NFL standpoint, talking to coaches and front office people leading up to our show tonight. That's a real concern with him, but I like your point about Jacoby Brissett. That's why he's there. They knew they were going to add a significant piece of quarterback. They've done that. And he's going to get better coaching. Alex Van Pelt has worked with a lot of young quarterbacks over the years. You might remember him as a journeyman backup quarterback. He's a pretty sharp guy, and he did a very good job in Cleveland.
Yeah, Colorado State product, Alex Van Pelt. So, Ben, obviously a long road ahead for the New England Patriots. Been a minute since they've had a win total of 4.5.
So, Kev, not many surprises so far in the first three selections of the 2024 NFL Draft. Quarterbacks have gone 1, 2, and 3, and Drake May closed as a hefty favorite to be that third overall selection for New England. Why did the odds expect this to be the case on this opening night in Detroit?
All in all, the Patriots needing a quarterback was not a mystery, but as we talk through it here as a crew, the notion that Drake May has a long road is a gift if New England is patient. Sitting round one quarterbacks tend to work. I would like to see New England use that same patience. Drake May is currently 14-1 to an offensive rookie of the year. It wouldn't surprise me if later on this summer we see odds to be the week one starting quarterback in New England with Jacoby Brissett as the favorite. Behind me, though, of course, we have the Arizona Cardinals. And the question with Arizona is not really what they will do if they select here. It's will they select here? Marvin Harrison Jr. is incredible and fits a need. But teams are calling, we know that, Ben, and still no official word yet as to the decision Arizona will make.
That is certainly the case, although I do believe the Cardinals have made their official selection at number 4 overall. It is the wide receiver out of Ohio State, the Biletnikoff Award winner for the best wide receiver in college football a season ago, Marvin Harrison Jr., a name very familiar around the National Football League, the son of Marvin Harrison. After a stellar career in Indianapolis, his son now, Joe, the 4th overall pick made by the Arizona Cardinals. So far, it has been chalk as MHJ was minus 370 to be this 4th overall pick to Arizona, but the first non-quarterback off the board. What does Marvin Harrison Jr. present at the wide receiver position?
Oh, red zone opportunities. Big body, 6'3", about 215 pounds. Stepped up, Ben, in regards to the biggest games on Ohio State's schedule. 118 receiving yards against Michigan. They lost that, but still had a touchdown. He stepped up against Penn State, 150-yard-plus performance and a touchdown. So the two best secondaries that he faced, Marvin Harrison Jr. was the best player on the football field. Let's not forget, if you want a comp for Marvin Harrison Jr., look no further than Calvin Johnson. Big body, could box out, and now all-pro Hall of Famer's a huge ask, but he has that type of big playability in Kyler Murray's offense. I think he could step up, hit the ground running, and be a potential 1,000-yard wide receiver this year.
At number 4 overall, it is the earliest a wideout has been drafted in the NFL draft since 2015, and that was Amari Cooper. It also signals a consecutive first-round pick for the Ohio State University dating back to the 2016 NFL Draft. But, Mike Blewitt, you know that one man especially is celebrating out there in the desert tonight. His name is Kyler Murray. He's got a new top target out in Arizona.
No doubt about it. Cap, I'll go to you on this one simply because I think there's got to be some NFL folks that feel that Marvin Harrison may be the best overall prospect in this entire draft. He's not a QB, so he doesn't get the same positional value, but he's certainly got a lot of positional value for Kyler Murray, as Ben said.
Mike, the term is, from a scout, is gold jacket player. He's the only player in this draft that some people around the National Football League believe could be a Hall of Fame player. Like his dad, who's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's really an amazing story. When you look at it, Marvin Harrison Jr. from St. Joe's Prep, his dad went to Roman Catholic in Philly. What an unbelievable story. And the great thing is, he doesn't have a weakness. I like the comparison to Larry Fitzgerald. That's the best one I've heard. I like Joe's is interesting with Calvin Johnson. I don't think he's as explosive as Megatron, but this guy is special, and he goes to a team that didn't have a clear starting wide receiver, Mike. So great job by the Arizona Cardinals.
Warren, part of the reason that these teams are picking in the top 5 is they need a lot of help. But the Cardinals are building from the ground up. They've got Kyler, and now he's got his best weapon.
I love it. Look, the only wide receivers that the Cardinals have selected inside the top 100 since drafting Kyler Murray, Andy Isabella, Rondale Moore, and Michael Wilson.
Ooh.
So they have not really done a good job of trying to go out and get a young guy to build and grow with Kyler Murray until now with Marvin Harrison Jr. I love the selection. Kyler Murray, though, some really concerning traits over the last 2 years. Passes that have been thrown 10 yards down the field or further. We're not talking 20, 30 yards down, 10 yards downfield or further. He ranks 40th in the NFL in completion rate over the last 2 years combined. So 41% completion rate, ranks 40th in the NFL over the last 2 years. Got to increase that, but certainly this is definitely something to look forward to for 2024. Gives him a great weapon to grow with.
Yeah, Ben, hopefully MHJ will help him to improve that completion percentage. My favorite player in the draft. I'm glad he got to land at a place with a starting quarterback in place.
So, Kev, quickly here, Marvin Harrison Jr. was a heavy favorite to go 4th overall to the Cardinals, also a heavy favorite to be the first wide receiver off the board. Who are some of those names to know at the wideout position that could follow Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Malik Neighbors, Ramadunze, a lot of love for both talents. Neighbors going 5 or 6 has been heavily talked about. Rome over under draft position 8.5, closed with juice to the under, expecting a trade up potentially for his services if he's even on the board. Some movement, Ben, as to whether Rome or Malik is the second wide receiver off the board.
The big old lightning bolt behind Kevin Walsh, the LA Chargers now on the clock. We continue our draft special up next.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been there a couple of years, and then go get the high-profile recruit and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Quotes coming out about Embiid. Oh, he's a warrior. You'll never get him off the court. You're just telling me he's an injury. He's one slip and fall away from not seeing him anymore in this series.
I would have sat him because there was only 1 day between the 2 games. It's 2 days between games 2 and games 3, and it's 2 days between games 3 and game 4.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The 2024 NFL Draft rolls on with the LA Chargers now on the clock under a new head coach in Jim Harbaugh. And we are just getting word the Chargers, who we thought might shop this pick at 5th overall, are intending to keep it. So now we go to the odds man following the movement. Kev, who was the favorite to be the 5th overall pick before these draft market closed?
Well, what are you asking me, pal? We saw a lot of guys favored to go 5 throughout this process. Malik Neighbors, J.J. McCarthy, J.C. Latham, the Alabama offensive tackle, as well. And if this is Latham, sure, some bets would cash that were favored. Offensive line being the position of the first pick for the Chargers went from -175 to -190. Latham being a top 10 pick became a minus number as well. But a massive upset would be Joe Alt not being the first offensive lineman drafted in this class. That is likely because Alt, a left tackle, the Chargers have Rashawn Slater over there already and perhaps don't want to make that move to put Alt as their right tackle. Big winners there would, of course, be the Tennessee Titans, who throughout this process have seemingly been a minus money favorite to select Alt. Again, the news came down that the Chargers are not trading. What does that mean for the Giants? We'll get to all of that. But the expectations for the Chargers, Ben, has been offensive line. We'll see if that comes in.
So, Kev, a slight upset in terms of who the pick is, but not where he was expected to go, as according to the rest of the O-linemen in this 2024 NFL draft class, because you just mentioned his name. The pick now officially in, made by the LA Chargers. It's the outstanding offensive lineman out of Notre Dame, Joe Alt, who is a very hefty favorite at -430 to be the first O-lineman drafted. You hear the reaction here on our draft special on SportsGrid. So, Mike Blewitt, over to you. Talk with the fellows on your right and left why this is, in fact, a surprise for the Bolts.
Yeah, I think everybody wants a shot at this one. I'm not surprised that Harbaugh wants an offensive lineman, but Warren, we now have two massive bookend tackles, both seemingly left tackles. Harbaugh doesn't care. He's going to throw weight at it and try to run the ball down everybody's throat.
Hey, I just want to say, mock drafts up on my website, Sharp Football Analysis. One of my guys, Ryan McChrystal, was mocking Joe Alt there for weeks and weeks, and all the Chargers fans absolutely hated it, gave him a ton of crap for mocking Joe Alt there. And the bottom line is this. The reason he was doing it is because when Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh got together in San Francisco, this team had the 3rd highest run rate of any team in the NFL. And if you look at the Chargers, the last 2 years, this is what they rank: 29th in yards per carry, 29th in EPA per rush, 27th in success rate, 31st in explosive run rate. This team has been a bottom 5 rushing offense over the last couple of years. They desperately needed to improve along the offensive line. They plan to run the football a lot more. They go out and they get an offensive lineman. Though, Adam, it wasn't the offensive lineman you and I think, were thinking they would go for.
No, J.C. Latham, Warren, good point, had been talked a lot about, but here's why I didn't think it would be Alt. Joe Alt's a left tackle. He's a massive left tackle. In fact, I'm told by multiple coaches that around the National Football League that he's the kind of guy that you feel is the safest left tackle for this draft. Now, the question is, are they going to line up at left tackle, where Rashawn Slater was a second-team All-Pro as a rookie? The right tackle is Trey Pipkins. His base salary of $6.25 million became fully guaranteed in March. So Pipkins now, they own that money, but Joe Alt has to start. You take the guy at 5th overall, guys, he's got to start, and so does Rashawn Slater. Trey Pipkins is probably going to be moved.
Ben, you have to hand it to Harbaugh. He doesn't hide it. It's what he likes to do. He doesn't let J.J. McCarthy throw. He's not going to let Justin Herbert throw quite as much as he has in the past. We'll see if they have the weapons to help this running game.
Yeah, Joe, we know what Jim Harbaugh likes to build his offenses around. It is establishing the run, to the nth degree. He's got those bookends of the tackles. What do you make of this move for Jim Harbaugh, his first draft selection as the head man out in L.A.?
Yeah, typical Jim Harbaugh move. They were undefeated every time they pounded the rock band over the past couple of seasons in Michigan, over 200 yards, and they won those games by an average margin of victory of 23 points per game. So just think about the physicality and what they bring to the table. That's the biggest thing when you look at the L.A. Chargers in regards to their former head coach, Brandon Staley. They were inefficient and they got pushed around in the interior. Jim Harbaugh wants to establish a culture. Joe Alt, 6'7", 321. And let's not forget, Notre Dame averaged 5.2 yards per rush and, more importantly, 185 yards per game. That's why Audric Estime is potentially one of the better running backs in this draft class because of Joe Alt. I like the pick.
You see the size. We know it was as surefire as you could expect, Kev, for Joe Alt to be that first offensive lineman at the board. Maybe just not at number 5 overall to the L.A. Chargers, but in what we expect to be a big night of offensive linemen going off the board in the opening round of the 2024 NFL Draft. That's one. The over-under was 9.5.
Again, this is one of those situations where the mock draft movement starts to create some chaos. But if I, a week and a half ago, would have told everybody here, hey, a team favored a draft offensive line, took the first offensive lineman, and it was Joe Alt, nobody would be stunned. The Latham news continue to grow because of that right tackle need. I did see places say the Chargers spoke with Joe Alt about possibly playing right tackle. You know they did their homework, and they took what I still believe this group would all agree is the best offensive lineman in the class. The real upset here, though, is not just what happens at 5. Everybody was plus money. Joe Alt at points today was nearly minus 200 to be selected 7th overall. Do the Tennessee Titans take J.C. Latham? People think that's on the board. Or could they trade out themselves here, having now missed out on the tackle that they coveted to fill the left side of their offensive line?
And Kev, behind you, it was the logo of the G-Men. The New York Giants were on the clock no longer, as the pick is officially in. And it's the second player out of LSU. The wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, is the 6th overall selection made by the New York Giants. Joe, 30 seconds left here, one of the best wideouts in college football. What is Malik Neighbors going to do at the next level?
Tyreek Hill type of player. He's a pocket rocket, and more importantly, Ben, explosive plays and yards after the catch. That's what the Giants need with their quarterbacks.
But with J.J. McCarthy still on the board, was it the right pick by the New York Giants? We'll get more in Sharp's thoughts on this after the break, live right here on SportsGrid's Draft Special.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been here a couple of years, and then go get the high-profile recruit and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Quotes coming out about Embiid. Oh, he's a warrior. You'll never get him off the court. You're just telling me he's an injury. He's one slip and fall away from not seeing him anymore in this series.
I would have sat him because there was only 1 day between the 2 games. It's 2 days between games 2 and games 3, and it's 2 days between games 3 and game 4.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The pick is in for the New York Giants at 6th overall. They stay put, and they select the wide receiver out of LSU, Malik Nabers, the second wideout we have seen on the board. And Nabers was booked as the favorite to be the 6th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft at plus 160. So, Mike Blewitt, there was an expectation the G-men could take a wide receiver. They end up selecting Malik Nabers. But with J.J. McCarthy still lurking on the draft boards in maybe a team that could look to the future with a quarterback, I think some might be asking, was it the right decision by Big Blue?
Yeah, I'm going to let Warren go here. He prefaced this a little while ago that the Giants needed to do something to address the long-term future QB. And Warren, the Giants only had 6 picks. Now one is gone with Nabers. They do not have a lot of draft capital to try to maneuver to find that quarterback.
Yeah, they didn't like J.J. McCarthy. I don't blame them for not going with him. They wanted Drake May. They maybe couldn't have gotten up there to get him. But here is the issue. Yes, I love Malik Nabers. He looks absolutely awesome. I can't wait to watch him play in the pros. That being said, if you look at Daniel Jones, okay, and you look at when is the easiest time to pass the football? It's on first down. Yet on first down passing, Daniel Jones, the last 2 years, has ranked 48 out of 48 quarterbacks. If you go back and you look at, okay, well, let's remove the sacks, because obviously he was sacked a lot. He still ranks 47 out of 48 quarterbacks. What if you remove the sacks and all the pressures? Still 47 out of 48 quarterbacks. Then you look at this offensive line. The Giants have invested the second most draft capital over the last 5 years on their offensive line, and yet they rank dead last in pass protection rate in terms of the pressure that they allow on their quarterbacks. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have a good offensive line. You can bring in whatever skill positions that you want. It's going to come down to the engine of the offense. That's the quarterback operating behind this offensive line. And until they do something to fix that, they're really not going to be able to see much of an upside. I worry about what they're going to be able to do this season. When you look at their strength of schedule, it's not an easy schedule. They rank 20th in strength of schedule ease, and they're only 6.5 win total this year. And I worry about the coaching staff if this team does not perform very well this season.
Yeah, to hammer home Warren's point, the Giants' offensive line, according to Pro Football Focus, ended up 30th ranked amongst all offensive lines. The only player on that offensive line with a grade over 65 out of 100 was Andrew Thomas, and he missed part of the season. So, Cap, it continues with the Giants. What concerns me about them as a team is that John Mara and this obviously old-school football front office continues to be involved in ways that tie the coach's hands, as Warren said.
All right, so let me just explain. When you mentioned John Mara, the president of the team, he's very close, I'm told, to Daniel Jones. Now, what I'm also told is he's not going to interfere. It's not a secret in their building that John likes Daniel Jones, writing the checks, but it's Joe Shane's decision what they're going to do, and he lets them know in the front office upstairs, or told ownership has to okay, but it's his call. And Warren's right. They don't have a very good offensive line. It's bad. It's been bad for years. And they still have to address it. I'm sure they will do that. But they don't. Their starting group, they had a bunch of number 3 receivers last season. They need a true number 1. Malik Nabers is absolutely electric. He's an absolute stud. This is a great pick. I know there's some stuff about maturity, I'm told. He's aware of it. Clubs that I've talked to brought him in for a visit. They talked to him about it. He knows. But this is a dynamic, electric player the Giants have got. Now they've got a true number 1 receiver.
Ben, obviously a lot of thoughts about what the Giants have done here, but back to you to move on to maybe our next pick.
And the Tennessee Titans were on the clock, but the pick is already in, now made official. The Titans expected to draft an offensive lineman, and that's exactly what they do. In the opening round of the 2024 NFL Draft, the 7th overall pick, J.C. Latham, out of Alabama, the offensive tackle. Joe, Alabama has now had a first-round pick Every single NFL draft year dating back to 2009, and Latham is the guy making his way to Nashville. With a focus on the offensive line in the last 2 years, Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern was that first overall selection a season ago. The Titans trying to build up that O-line.
Yeah, it's a solid pick, and if you want to protect your young quarterback, Will Levis, you need a good physical offensive tackle, and that's what Latham brings to the table. Alabama averaged well over 4.5 yards per rush last season, over 180 yards per game. Latham was a main reason why. And let's not forget they have two, I want to say, finesse type of running backs in Tajay Spear and Tony Pollard. They need to catch the edge. Latham gives them that ability.
Tennessee trying to build up offensively to surround their young quarterback in Will Levis, a second-round pick a season ago on that offensive side of the football. We'll get more reaction on the Titans selecting J.C. Latham with the 7th overall pick. That's now 2 big hog mollies up front that have been drafted in the first 7 picks of the 2024 NFL Draft. More coming your way next.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been here a couple of years, and then go get the high-profile recruit and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Quotes coming out about Embiid. Oh, he's a warrior. You'll never get him off the court. You're just telling me he's an injury. He's one slip and fall away from what's not seeing him anymore in this series.
I would have sat him because there was only 1 day between the 2 games. It's 2 days between games 2 and games 3, and it's 2 days between games 3 and game 4.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Tennessee Titans with the 7th overall pick of the 2024 NFL Draft draft the offensive lineman out of Alabama, J.C. Latham. So that's the story in Nashville, but one of the big stories starting to emerge here in the top 10 of the draft is the slide of J.J. McCarthy. Kev, earlier today, almost a 3-1 number in minus money at minus 280 to be a top 5 pick right before the draft began tonight in Detroit. Minus 700 for J.J. McCarthy to be a top 10 selection. What are the odds telling us now about where J.J. McCarthy might land and when?
They are telling us that the Minnesota Vikings won't have to do a thing. There are live draft odds right now on FanDuel. With the 11th pick, J.J. McCarthy is the favorite at minus 210. Here you see J.J. at minus 170 price to go to the Minnesota Vikings. A number that came through when we saw the Drake May news jump up. But the Falcons at 8 and the Bears at 9 are 2 teams, Ben, we've heard plenty as it pertains to trade.
Yep, and we might have some more breaking news to get to in just a second here. But, Joe, as we focus on J.J. McCarthy, just for a moment here, the most pivotal piece in this draft, we heard numerous teams were interested in trading up for Michigan's starting quarterback who led the Maize and Blue to a national championship. But we have very big news here. At number 8 overall, the first shocker of the 2024 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons have selected the quarterback out of Washington, Michael Penix Jr.
Amazing.
8th overall, he goes to the ATL. We'll go to a quarterback room, joining Kirk Cousins. So, Joe, that's the reaction here on our SportsGrid Draft Special. If you signed Kirk Cousins to the big deal earlier this offseason, then why Michael Penix Jr. at number 8 overall?
Well, I think the concern potentially, Ben, of the Achilles coming back from a major injury. He's up in terms of his late 30s. How does he respond? And Michael Penix is a 4'5", 40 type of caliber player, pure pocket passer. He could develop behind Kirk Cousins. They have a potential quarterback of the future if Kirk Cousins doesn't work out. And I think it's a pretty good move if you're looking long term. Let's not forget, if this draft, at the end of the regular season, Washington was undefeated. The main reason why was Michael Penix. I mean, 36-plus touchdowns, stepped up in back-to-back games against a top 10 defense in Oregon. Michael Penix got bashed. He deserves to be a top 10 pick.
His draft position prop at close was 21.5, and the under had the juice. But I don't think we expected it to be this early on. Mike Blewitt, now over to you. What is the reaction of Michael Penix Jr. going 8th overall to the Atlanta Falcons?
Well, color me stunned, obviously. But Warren, when it comes to the signing with Kirk Cousins, it's obviously one of the most high-profile offseason signings. But that's effectively a 3-year deal for a 36-year-old quarterback coming off a major injury. So not what we expected. Love your thoughts.
I'm stunned. I mean, look at who the Falcons are picking ahead of. The Bears and the Jets, those teams have quarterbacks. They're not going to be drafting a quarterback. Obviously, I guess you could go Vikings, Broncos, Raiders need quarterbacks, but is Penix the guy that they are targeting? Could you not have moved down just a little bit and still gotten Penix? I don't understand drafting Penix at 8 where they did, but hey, if they think he is the franchise quarterback, then it might make sense. But you just signed Kirk Cousins to be your franchise quarterback for several years. So I don't understand this move for the Atlanta Falcons. He does not help them win in 2024, in my opinion. I think his development is going to take a little bit of time at the pro level. So even if you say, hey, Kirk Cousins might take a little bit of time coming back from the Achilles, is Penix really the guy that you're going to throw in there week 1 to assist you and win actual games? I don't know.
He's also a little bit of an older rookie as well, so that's some
24.
surprise as well. You have to wonder if this next pick becomes more fluid as teams start to angle for the next quarterback off the board, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, whoever it might be. Obviously, balls are all up in the air now that Penix has gone here, Cap. So obviously a stunner by the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, and Mike, he's got a 4-year deal, Kirk Cousins. The structure is really 2 years, but there's no debate. Kirk Cousins is their starting quarterback through 2025. So Michael Penix will be their backup quarterback. But this is stunning to me. I agree with Warren. But the thing I would say is it's not always easy to trade down. You need to find a trade partner. But that is absolutely stunning because they're going to get nothing out of it. You don't draft a backup quarterback in the first round normally. When the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts, their thought process, and this is, by the way, he's a second-round pick, when he's going to be Carson Wentz's backup, they thought they'd be able to flip Hurts if Wentz got hurt, maybe get 3 or 4 good games and trade him. That's not what this is about. Penix is drafted to be the successor to Kirk Cousins.
So, Ben, first time in modern draft history that the first 8 picks are offensive players. Back to you.
And we have already seen 4 quarterbacks go off the board as well in the first 8 selections. So, Kev, we're all surprised that the Atlanta Falcons made this move with the 8th overall pick. What were the odds even for Michael Penix Jr. to wind up in Atlanta?
I'm going to be honest, folks. I am furious with myself right now because last Thursday, I think last Thursday, I had Adam Kaplan on Game Time Decisions and said, Cap, I know this will sound crazy, but I saw a mock draft today of Jonathan Jones of CBS. I have to give it recognition, where he said Penix was going in the first 12 and mocked him 8th to the Falcons. 29-1 for Atlanta to take Penix. 30-1 for Penix to be a top 10 pick. All were available, and I laughed it off. And those are all winning wagers now, so a credit to anybody who took that. By the way, not that long ago, Penix was a plus price to be selected inside the first round. He ended up with a draft position over-under at 21.5. To call this a stunner is an understatement here, and that's before you start to consider they just brought Kirk Cousins in and took one of the oldest draft quarterback prospects in some time and said, yeah, we'll start him when he's 27. By the time Penix takes the field, Sam Darnold will still probably be younger than him. But that's not the point. Again, these things have ripple effects, and both Mike and Ben alluded to it. There was a huge plus price on no defensive players to be selected inside the top 10 that did close underneath plus 500. 2 picks away, Ben, from that being a winning wager.
Kev, we love to follow the odds movement because it is so volatile for an NFL draft. And as you can see, wild things are the expectation for the National Football League. When it comes to draft night, Michael Penix Jr. closed as a slight favorite, minus 125 to be a first-round pick. He has now been drafted in the top 10, 8th overall by the Atlanta Falcons. The Chicago Bears were on the clock with the 9th overall selection of this 2024 NFL draft. They're second in the top 10 in Chicago, celebrating that a wide receiver was still there at number 9 overall. It's the second consecutive Washington Husky. Rome Odunze, it is official, goes 9th overall to the Chicago Bears. So Michael Penix Jr. Joe goes 8th overall to Atlanta. His top target the last few seasons in Seattle, Rome Odunze, goes 9th overall to the Bears, who have completely changed the scope of their offense in one night in the span of 9 picks. Caleb Williams 1st overall, Rome Odunze 9th overall. How ecstatic should Bears fans be for this new era of offense in the Windy City?
Very. What a difference a year makes, right? We were screaming for this last year, Ben, with Justin Fields. 17.8 yards per reception, 92 receptions, over 1,600 yards. A smooth route runner, stepped up in the biggest games on the Husky schedule, and he's going to hit the ground running. Keenan Allen, veteran wide receiver DJ Moore to learn from. This is a great addition for Caleb Williams in that offense.
I believe there is a celebration in that Chicago war room for what Ryan Poles has pulled off for the Bears organization with those 2 picks in the top 9. At number 1 overall, it was expected. Caleb Williams, the quarterback out of USC. At number 9 overall, the wide receiver out of Washington, Rome Odunze, now makes his way to Chicago. We are almost wrapping up the top 10 of the 2024 NFL Draft. The New York Jets on the clock with that 10th overall selection. But some more thoughts on how Caleb Williams and Odunze will pair up in the Windy City. Up next.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been here a couple of years, and then go get the high-profile recruit and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Quotes coming out about Embiid. Oh, he's a warrior. You'll never get him off the court. You're just telling me he's an injury. He's one slip and fall away from what's not seeing him anymore in this series.
I would have sat him because there was only 1 day between the 2 games. It's 2 days between games 2 and games 3, and it's 2 days between games 3 and game 4.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
So a few stunning moves in the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft, and we have another one here. The Minnesota Vikings have a trade with the New York Jets. The Jets had the 10th overall selection. They move back by one. Minnesota moves up a spot from 11 to number 10 overall, and in doing so, we know who the Vikings are targeting, and the pick is now official. Minnesota selects the 5th quarterback in the first 10 picks of the 2024 NFL Draft. The Vikings have taken J.J. McCarthy, the quarterback out of Michigan. Joe, in the closing minutes before the NFL Draft got started on this Thursday evening out in Detroit, the team to select J.J. McCarthy, the Vikings were a hefty favorite at minus 170. They have had their eyes on J.J. McCarthy in the entirety of this NFL draft cycle. What did they end up with in Minneapolis?
A winner, and the ability to have a franchise quarterback maybe in 1 or 2 years. I think that's the biggest thing when you look at J.J. McCarthy. He does have the physical attributes. He's still a little bit raw. You go back to the game against Penn State, completed 7 of 8 passes for only 60 yards, struggled at the end of the regular season against a mediocre Maryland type of defense. So those were the concerns about J.J. McCarthy, but he's a pure winner. And now with Kevin O'Connell and the rushing attack that came on at the end of the regular season, he has the ability to develop with the best wide receiver, at least right now, in terms of Justin Jefferson, that's still on the roster for the Minnesota Vikings.
Absolutely so. Kev, the Vikings get their guy in J.J. McCarthy. We thought at a certain point Minnesota might be in the mix for a trade up inside not just the top 10, but the top 5. They move up by a spot, and with the 10th overall selection, get their guy, J.J. McCarthy, now the new quarterback in Minnesota. What did the odds tell us about how the Vikings were circling McCarthy as the guy they wanted to be the face of the franchise in the future?
Again, this is incredible. But we talk bad beats, and even draft betting can deliver them. We just broke down the Vikings being a live minus 200 favorite to take JJ at 11. Well, they traded up, but not to 9 or 8, right? They just get up to 10. All of a sudden, now J.J. McCarthy to be a top 10 pick, those bets cash. Here's what loses. Brock Bowers to be a top 10 pick. And I'm just guessing that's what the Jets will do here at 11. I don't know. Maybe they'll take offensive line. But that swing is massive. People with Bowers under 11.5 or 12.5 draft position stay in the mix. Minnesota taking J.J. McCarthy, again, not a stunner, but a moment today where we saw the Pats under plus 150 as the favorite team to draft him. Talked with someone today throughout the day about what to do with McCarthy, and eventually he got it. He said, you know what? It's the Vikings at plus 250. And before we got going, minus 170 on the Vikings to be the team to select J.J. McCarthy. And for Kevin O'Connell, who last year had enough success with backups like Nick Mullins, you got to think McCarthy gives him at least as good of a chance as him, and that offense was still putting up points and yards.
In the modern draft era, dating back to 1997, the 7-round format that has began annually, we have seen 5 quarterbacks go in the first round 3 times. 5 QBs in the opening round is the most we have ever seen. Tonight we made more history in the National Football League draft. 5 QBs go in the top 10. That is a first. Also history, no defensive players drafted in the first 10 selections of an NFL draft. The only time we have ever seen that in the modern draft era. But Mike Blewitt, as we focus on J.J. McCarthy, as Kev alluded to, the odds expected him to be a top 10 pick, closing at minus 700. But the stats at Michigan maybe differ just a little bit from that top 10 evaluation. So now it's the projection of the prospect taking a huge leap to the next level.
Yeah, so, Warren, I'll go to you on this one. The Vikings had 9 picks coming into the draft. They don't have to – they could utilize a little bit of that draft capital to move up the one spot and get something to address the long-term future at quarterback. You talked about this with the Giants. They haven't done it. The Vikings utilized what they had, move up the one spot, and get J.J. McCarthy. We may not love him as a prospect, but from a planning standpoint, the Vikings are moving forward with J.J. McCarthy.
Vikings and their fans have to absolutely love this move. Look, they were able to wait and wait and wait. And finally they said, look, let's just end the waiting. We only have to move up one slot. We don't have to give up that much draft capital. And we're going to get our guy. Unlike the Giants, who didn't want J.J. McCarthy, the Minnesota Vikings had their eyes set on J.J. McCarthy. Dots were connected there for a while. This was the guy that they wanted. His over-under was set at 5.5. A lot of people were betting that under, especially the last few days, thinking that J.J. McCarthy would creep up there into the top 5 because the Minnesota Vikings would move that high up. They don't need to do that. Now, I will say, by my strength of schedule metrics, the Minnesota Vikings are going to play the 5th most difficult schedule this upcoming season. Certainly not going to be easy on J.J. McCarthy, but happy for the Vikings fans that they got a guy that their coaching staff really wanted and did not have to give up very much draft capital to do it.
Yeah, this division, obviously, Adam, has seen a lot of movement in the last couple of years. So the Vikings, in a weird situation where they had a good amount of pieces around them, they need to keep somebody like Justin Jefferson happy and know that there's a plan at QB going forward.
Yeah, Mike, we talked about this before our show started, really, that my feeling was that somehow the Vikings were going to get J.J. McCarthy. He's a perfect fit for West Coast offense that Kevin O'Connell's going to run. And this is the offense, only, to be honest with you, that J.J. McCarthy could play in. You're not going to ask him to throw the ball downfield. You don't ask Brock Purdy to throw the ball downfield 50 yards. It's 20, 15 yards. This is good offense for him. I like the move.
All right, so we only had the one trade in that top 10. To my guy, Kev Walsh, kind of still feels like a lock that we're going to get to 7, but back to Ben before.
So as we see that trade, 5 quarterbacks in the top 10, J.J. McCarthy, that guy for the Minnesota Vikings. But Joe Lisi, when you look at what he did for the Michigan Wolverines, there is no doubt he is a winner. A 27-1 record as the starting quarterback in Ann Arbor in the last 50 years. The last half century of college football, it's the best record for a starting quarterback with a minimum of 25 starts. But from what we saw production-wise in Ann Arbor, now to the National Football League, what does that ceiling look like for J.J. McCarthy in the NFL?
Well, I think he could be the franchise quarterback. I think, again, it might take a couple of years working with Kevin McConnell, but the way I draft and judge quarterbacks is if the game is on the line, 2 minutes or less, and you need a touchdown, can J.J. McCarthy potentially deliver? He did it against Alabama in the playoff win over the Crimson Tide. I think he could do it in the NFL.
The Vikings hoping for the same, but a win total of 6.5 for this upcoming year in 2024. The over, though, does have the juice. So the top 10 is done. The New York Jets on the clock with the 11th overall pick. We'll break it down up next.
I think they're looking for a space where they can be comfortable, perhaps make some NIL money in the process, but be better set up long-term as opposed to it being 1 year jumping around.
You want to kind of get your core players that have been there a couple of years and then go get the high-profile recruit and then supplement at the transfer portal.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
Quotes coming out about Embiid. Oh, he's a warrior. You'll never get him off the court. You're just telling me he's an injury. He's one slip and fall away from what's not seeing him anymore in this series.
I would have sat him because there was only 1 day between the 2 games. It's 2 days between games 2 and games 3, and it's 2 days between games 3 and game 4.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
So the top 10 of the 2024 NFL Draft has now come to a close, and pick number 11 has been officially made. A small trade between the New York Jets and the Minnesota Vikings. Gang Green had the 10th overall pick. They trade with Minnesota. They move back to number 11 overall. Minnesota takes J.J. McCarthy to round out the top 10, and another Big Ten player goes 11th overall. Olu Fashanu, the offensive lineman out of Penn State, is the selection by the New York Jets. Joe, for Penn State this past year, Fashanu as reliable as you would expect. Only one quarterback pressure in more than 600 pass blocking snaps this past season, keeping Drew Aller outright. Now his charge is to do the same with Aaron Rodgers, returning from the Achilles injury after only 4 plays a season ago. How do you grade the pick made by the New York Jets?
I think it's a safe pick, but a good pick because you have to protect an aging quarterback. And let's not forget, in regards to Breece Hall and that rushing attack, you take the pressure off of Aaron Rodgers. And Fashanu stepped up and is a very dominant run blocker as well. And when you talk about Singleton and Katron Allen and that Penn State offense that averaged 4.6 yards per rush, 185 rushing yards per game, he translates on the next level. And that's what they need to protect Aaron Rodgers and compete for an AFC East title.
Yeah, when you look at the New York Jets, Mike Blewitt, it felt like the sensible pick to look at the offensive line and keep Aaron Rodgers upright to protect him as much as possible. Olu Fashanu goes 11th overall to Gang Green. How does he factor into this offense? That's a conversation I'm sure you're about to have.
Yeah, so the Jets last year, according to Pro Football Focus, the 31st most effective offensive line. Warren, 13 different offensive linemen played at least 80 snaps for the Jets during the 2023 season, and they allowed a league-high 259 pressures. It was a lot on Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle and others, but Aaron Rodgers hopefully will help give them a much different look behind a reworked offensive line.
Yeah, I don't want to give Zach Wilson too much of a pass because I think he would have been terrible regardless of the line. But I absolutely think that was a major part of the Jets' struggles and Zach Wilson's struggles over the last 3 years is this team has not been able to build an offensive line very similar to the New York Giants. Spent a ton of money on draft capital on drafting offensive linemen, have not had any success, have allowed the second highest pressure rate despite drafting the second highest most draft capital over the last 5 years. But one of the key elements here, the New York Jets need to figure out their way with Aaron Rodgers, with a better offensive line, to score their points. They've long been known for having a great defense, but even when that defense, keep in mind the average points per game over the last 3 years is 25.5. Even when they hold opponents to 20 points or less, they have the number 32 ranked win rate. But when they simply score 20 points or more, they have the 17th ranked win rate. When they hold opponents to 24 or less, they have the 31st ranked win rate. But when they score 24 or more, they have the number 9 ranked win rate. This team is a great defense, but that's not going to win them games. They need to be scoring more points offensively, protect Aaron Rodgers. That's what they're looking to do here.
So one of the players certainly mocked towards the Jets time and time again. Yep. They do it a pick later than expected.
Yeah, look, the Jets, they get a left tackle. They had to get a left tackle. This had to happen. Sure, they need a receiver, but Dunze was gone. I know for a fact they really liked him. So The Jets are going to start protecting Aaron Rodgers. That's a big thing. They tried with Dwayne Brown, didn't work. They tried with Becton at left tackle, didn't work, and now they get their guy. And it's been an interesting time for the Jets because the fans finally could say, yes, we could actually compete.
Okay, Ben, back to you as the Broncos may have their pick in.
So the Denver Broncos on the clock with the 12th overall pick, and more history made on this opening night of the 2024 NFL Draft. The pick is in, and the Denver Broncos select Bo Nix,
wow, that is really
out
early.
of Oregon at 12th overall. That is now 6 quarterbacks in the first 12 selections of this 2024 NFL Draft. The 6 quarterbacks, the most we have ever seen in the modern draft era in the National Football League, dating back to 1997. So those 2 veteran quarterbacks, Joe, out of the Pac-12. Michael Penix Jr. goes 8th overall to Atlanta. Bo Nix goes 12th overall to Denver. Sean Payton needs to win now. Did he get his quarterback of the future in Nix?
Yeah, he did in terms of this fit for where Bo Nix is and seeing Penix go off the board. If it was me, I would have went with Penix. But Bo Nix, 45 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, completion percentage, 77%. That was one of the best in terms of the FBS over the past 10 seasons. So he'll translate on the next level, especially with the tutelage of Payton.
It's year number 2 of the Sean Payton era in the Mile High City. Bo Nix now has the keys to the engine that is the franchise for Denver. How will he factor in for the Broncos? We break it down up next.